Good evening and welcome to the February 23rd, 2022 meeting of the Lake Oswego Development Review Commission. Chair Jeff Shearer could not be with us this evening. I'm Vice Chair Randy Arthur. We're pleased you're with us. Please call the roll of commissioners present.
Arthur?
Here.
Silent?
Here.
Barty?
Here.
Poinsett?
Here.
Sangri?
Here.
And also Mr. Smith is absent this evening.
Very good. We have a quorum, and our first item of business will be review and approval of the minutes of the November 15th, 2021 meeting of the DRC. If everyone has had a chance to look at them, are there any amendments or corrections? Is there a motion to approve the minutes as submitted?
I'll move approval of the meeting minutes from November.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and second to approve the DRC meeting minutes from November 15th, 2021. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Very good, those are approved. Our next agenda item relates to approval of the minutes of the December 6th, 2021 DRC meeting. If everyone has had a chance to look at them, are there any amendments or changes to the minutes as submitted?
I'll make a motion to approve the December, I'm sorry,
6th.
minutes.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve the minutes of the December 6th, 2021 meeting. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Very good, those minutes are approved. Our next item on our agenda relates to a public hearing on LU 21-0077, a request for a development review permit for a new 100-unit multifamily building, as well as a lot line adjustment to move lot lines between tax lots 400 and 404, and the removal of 33 trees to accommodate this development proposal. The site is located at 17600 Pacific Highway. The staff coordinator for this application is Evan Franstead, senior planner, who's with us this evening. Deputy City Attorney Boone, will you lead us into the hearing, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And the procedure I'll read at this point. The land use request is to be considered based upon the applicable criteria and standards. The staff report lists the criteria that staff identified as applicable to the request. It was available online from the Planning Department. Testimony and evidence must be directed towards the applicable criteria. We ask that you please specifically identify to the Commission the criteria or standards you are addressing so the Commission may consider your testimony in relation to those criteria or standards. If you do not identify the criteria or standards you are addressing, the Commission is not obliged to guess which standards or criteria you're testifying about and may not consider your testimony in its decision. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the Commission and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes raising the issue to the City Council and to the Oregon Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. The failure of the applicant to raise any constitutional or other issues relating to proposed conditions of approval with specificity to allow the Commission to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court. The hearing process will be as follows. First, a presentation by staff, then testimony by the applicant up to 20 minutes. Following that would be testimony by parties in support of the application, followed by testimony by parties opposed to the application, and finally by testimony by those neither for nor against the application. Individuals will be allowed up to 5 minutes. Any person in attendance may cede his or her time for testimony to another person, except to the applicant, but in no case shall any person's testimony be increased to greater than 10 minutes. Recognized neighborhood associations, homeowner associations, government or government agencies, or other incorporated public interest organizations will be allowed up to 10 minutes. Following that will be the applicant's rebuttal up to 5 minutes, and then commission deliberation, including a statement to the applicant by the commission of any proposed conditions of approval different than contained in the staff report, and the applicant's response to the commission's conditions of approval posed following commission deliberation. Now, the time limits do not include time spent responding to questions from the commission. Testimony by attorneys, representatives, and witnesses on behalf of which are part of the presentation by a person shall be counted within that person's time limit. It is assumed the persons are testifying on their own behalf unless they expressly identify the recognized neighborhood association, homeowner association, government or government agency, or other incorporated public interest organization they are representing. At this point, I would ask the commission members to please declare a potential conflict of interest declared on behalf of each of the DRC members to the extent of their business or employment, which each will identify. Unless declared otherwise, the respective DRC member does not have a known present or anticipated future business relationship with the project or the applicant. It is possible that a future business relationship could arise the initiation, design, construction, or maintenance of the project through either the employment or business of the DRC member personally, or through a relative as defined in ORS 244-020. So at this point, I would ask the commission members to please declare if you've had any ex parte contacts, including a site visit, if you have any bias on the application, any financial conflicts of interest declare, and please state your business or employment. Commissioner Sangre.
I am aware of the location of this proposed project. Other than that, I have no physical relationship. I have not been involved with any of the parties here. I do not have any ex parte relationship to any of the parties involved, and I do not feel that I have any bias with respect to this action.
Okay. Would you state and do you have any financial conflict of interest?
I have no financial relationship with any party.
And please identify your business or employment.
I am a retired engineer.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I have no bias, no conflicts, no relationships, none existing, none planned. My business, I am a construction consultant, primarily industrial, commercial, and power plants.
Okay. Did you make a site visit?
No, I did not.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Craig Berardi. I'm a financial and project management consultant with Northwest Pipe. I've not visited the site. I have no ex parte contacts, no bias, and no financial conflicts of interest.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Randy Arthur. I'm a civil litigation attorney at the Portland office of Bullenhauser Bailey, PC, and I have no financial interest in the application or site. I've not made a site visit. I'm not familiar with it. I have no disqualifying bias. Commissioner?
My name is Mark Silent. I'm a local business owner, and I'm also in the employment of the Intuit Corporation. I have not made a site visit. I have no ex parte contacts. I have no financial conflicts or biases.
Okay, thank you. Is there any challenge to Commissioner's right to consider the application? Seeing none, Senior Planner Evan Francis with the staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Boone and members of the commission. Before I give my presentation, I should note that this memo was sent out this afternoon to enter new exhibits into the record that were received after the staff report was published on February 11th. We received 5 exhibits in support of the application, the proposal. Those are G100 through G104, and we received 1 in opposition, that's G201. Okay, so proposal in front of us. Here's the site plan. As the chair said, the applicant is requesting approval of a development review permit for 100-unit multifamily building, lot line adjustment to move lot lines between parcels 2 and 3, and removal of 33 trees. The site is located on a unified site, which is approximately 50 acres in size, with frontages on Pacific Highway, also known as Highway 43, and Old River Road. It consists of 3 parcels and a cemetery. The site is zoned CI for campus institutional and is located within the southern portion of the Merrill Hurst campus institutional area. Properties to the north are zoned CI-OC and developed with assisted living, commercial, and residential. This is the Mary's Woods campus. So 2 separate properties, just to make it clear. We're talking about 2 separate campuses. So you have Merrill Hurst University, and then you have Mary's Woods. Properties to the east and south are located within the city of West Lynn and are developed with single-family dwellings. Properties to the west are zoned R10 and developed with single-family dwellings. The site, which is Merrill Hurst campus, is developed with 16 buildings that were previously used by Merrill Hurst University. The university was founded on the site in 1905, with the first buildings being constructed in the 1930s. The university ceased operations in 2018. Currently, the buildings on site are vacant or used as offices for small nonprofits. The buildings are served by a network of private streets, mainly Furman Drive and Furman Drive South, which connect to Pacific Highway at a signalized intersection. Gleason Drive also connects the campus to Mary's Woods to the north. The private streets provide access to several on-site parking lots that provide a total of 562 parking spaces. Additionally, a network of sidewalks provides pedestrian access from the highway to all the buildings on campus. As part of the development, the O'Hara, Baxter, and Thompson buildings will be demolished. That's where the arrow was pointing right there. The proposed 100-unit multifamily building will be located basically in the footprint of these buildings, which are located on the far east side of campus. So here's the basic site plan that shows the lot line adjustment. So the development area, when we talk about development area, we're talking about the new lot as part of the lot line adjustment. And that is 4.3 acres in size, and it's approximately 1,500 feet from Pacific Highway. So we're pretty far back there. There is delineated RP district with a class 1 stream corridor, and the Willamette River Greenway boundary extends over a portion of the site along Old River Road to the east. No development is proposed within the RP district or the Willamette River Greenway. The proposed lot line adjustment includes parcel 2, which is tax lot 400, and parcel 3, which is tax lot 404. Parcel 2 is approximately 38.12 acres. Parcel 3 is 6.65 acres. After the proposed lot line adjustment, the proposed parcel 2 will be 40.47 acres, and parcel 3 will be 4.30 acres. And you can see, hopefully, on the plan where the lot line is moving. It's around the parking lot to the west of the building. And here's a site plan that shows the parking lot and landscaping. The proposed development includes 144 parking spaces and approximately 54% open space and landscaping with a variety of trees, shrubs, ornamental grasses in the proposed landscaping areas. The courtyard, shown in the middle of the site of the U-shaped building, includes a plaza, children's play area, and a community garden. For tree removal, here's a tree removal plan that shows the trees to be removed and trees are to be planted as part of the mitigation plan. They're proposing to remove 33 trees for development purposes and to modifications to the existing parking lot. Staff finds that none of the trees proposed for removal are significant and that the removal of the trees will not have a significant negative impact on the character or aesthetics of the neighborhood. Staff concludes that proposed tree removal complies with the tree removal criteria. There is a recommended condition of approval A9, which requires the applicant to submit a final mitigation plan that shows 33 mitigation trees, one which must be native. And for the building plans, here's the west perspective rendering of the building, which is viewed, I guess, as a walkway if you're coming from Clark Commons building to the west. So the building includes a hipped roof with architectural asphalt shingles, vertical windows with limited window trim, articulated bays with eave extensions, horizontal and vertical fiber cement siding, and a predominantly brick base. You can see a little better with the close-up the courtyard here. So that shows the courtyard area with the garden beds and play area. You can see the brick base and the siding better in this view. And here's the north elevation. So this is if you're driving onto the site, you drive around the buildings, this is what you would see. The Dalvin Young building, which is to the north here, I guess if you're looking left. The main entrance here is on this elevation. Here are the building elevation plans that show it in one-dimensional form, but you can clearly see the building materials with the brick on the base, really gray siding, and the covered entryway. This also shows the maximum height of the building, which is 45 feet to meet the maximum height limitation. as you can see, the building steps down from 4 stories to 3 stories towards the north section of it, sorry, the west section of it. I think that's it for that one. This shows the other side, it's kind of a mirror, but a little bit smaller on the west elevation, and the U-shaped part of it along the west, so south and west. And the floor plan. So this is the first floor plan to give you an idea of the layout. The building includes altogether 17 one-bedroom units, 61 two-bedroom units, 22 three-bedroom units. The main entrance opens to a vestibule and then lobby and lounge, so that's to the north there. There is a trash recycling room. There's also a community space for residents that includes a multi-purpose room, kids area, computer lab, and kitchen. Other rooms include offices, mechanical rooms, and electrical rooms for use by staff. For the second floor, give you an idea of the second, third, and fourth floors, really, of the layout. Basic apartment, and I should note that there is bicycle storage on each floor here. And for the roof plan, this shows the hip roof, but inside of it, there's some mechanical wells that will screen the mechanical units on top there. And the bottom diagram shows how those mechanical units are not visible from the ground. As far as the building design standards, so the first one we'll talk about is building design standards require buildings to be complementary in appearance to adjacent structures of good design in regards to materials, setbacks, roof lines, height, and overall proportions. A multifamily building must be complementary to adjacent multifamily or commercial buildings of similar characteristics, but not that a multifamily building must be complementary to adjacent single-family buildings. All adjacent buildings of good design that are multifamily or similar commercial buildings are located on the Mary's Wood site, on their campus. Adjacent properties to the east, south, and west include single-family dwellings that are not considered buildings of similar type, which are proposed, so the proposal does not be complementary to those buildings. The applicant submitted a design diagram that you see in front of you that shows how the proposed building design is similar to the buildings on the Mary's Woods campus. My staff report has, I think, 4 photos of the buildings examples on Mary's Woods campus. This shows in a little more detail. Overall, staff finds that the proposed materials are complementary to adjacent multifamily buildings by utilizing asphalt shingles on the hip roof, wood framing on the entrance canopies, narrow trim, brick cladding, vertical windows, and articulated bays. So the second design criterion I'm going to talk about tonight is where their existing buildings are to remain on site, as we have here. New development shall be designed to integrate the remaining buildings into the overall design, or provide separate landscaping, remodeling, or other treatment which establishes a distinct character and function for the remaining buildings. So this design diagram shows how the building elements integrate the existing buildings on the Merrill Hurst campus site. The applicant narrative explains the proposed building design, placement, and landscaping were intentionally created to integrate with existing buildings on the site and provide a strong connection to the existing pathways and buildings while preserving a large amount of open space. The 13 existing buildings on the site include original historic buildings from the 1930s with predominantly brick cladding and contemporary mid-20th century design with vertical and horizontal wood siding. As shown on the building elevation plans I showed you previously, integration with other buildings on the site is demonstrated through consistent use of materials and massing, such as the brick cladding, wood frame entryways and canopies, eave extensions at the roof, sloped roof with asphalt shingles, and vertical siding. The building's location at the far east end of the site with the sloping topography combined with the U-shaped building form with the corresponding courtyard and landscaping does provide a separation from the remaining buildings on site. Staff finds the proposed development integrates the remaining buildings into their overall design. Overall, staff finds that the applicant's narrative, along with the proposed elevation and perspective drawings, adequately address how the proposal complies with the building design criteria. And as previously mentioned, the development includes 144 parking spaces. The total number of parking spaces on site within the unified site of Merrill Hurst campus will be 567 parking spaces with this development. The applicant submitted a parking study that states that the parking demand to be generated by the proposed 100-unit apartment building will be 87 parking spaces. The applicant submitted a table that shows the minimum parking required for the existing uses on site will be 111 parking spaces. The 187 parking spaces needed for the multifamily building and the 111 parking spaces for the other uses on site total 198 parking spaces required. The total number of parking spaces available within a unified site is 567 parking spaces. So therefore, the minimum parking standards are met. As for traffic, uses in the Merrill-Hurst campus subarea 1, where this development is located, are limited to those that collectively generate 327 or fewer trips during the AM weekday peak hour and 351 or fewer trips during the weekday PM peak hour. The applicant submitted a traffic report that demonstrates that the existing and proposed uses on the unified site with the proposed 100-unit multifamily building will generate approximately 298 AM weekday trips and 320 weekday PM trips. The city's traffic engineer has reviewed the applicant's traffic report and concurs with this analysis. Since the site takes access to the state highway, the Oregon Department of Transportation was provided opportunity to comment on the proposal, and they did. ODOT concurs that the development complies with the trip cap, and no further state review was required. So therefore, the standard is met. As discussed in my memo today, LOC 50.03.003.2C requires multifamily housing limited to subarea 1, as shown on the Merrill-Hurst campus site, as this development is, shall consist of 20 or more units where at least 10% of the units are continuously rented, leased, or made available for an amount of rent, plus expenses associated with the occupancy, such as utilities and fees, totaling not more than 30% of the income level that is 80% of the median income according to the Clackamas County Housing Authority income limits for affordable housing adjusted for household size. The applicant narrative states that 100% of the new units will be made available to residents earning 60% of the area median income or less. And the rent plus utilities will be set at a level that does not exceed 30% of the income level. As required with recommended conditions C10 and C11, a notice of development restriction will be required to ensure that the subsequent owner, if any, is aware of this zone standard. So it will live with the property, at least for 30 years. And that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Commissioners, this is an opportunity for us to ask preliminary questions of our Lake Oswego professional staff. Dwight, did you have any questions you wanted to ask on matters?
I have no question at this time.
Thank you. Bruce?
I have no questions either.
Craig?
Yeah, I'm gonna visit my favorite topic, parking. Can you go back to that slide?
Mm-hmm.
And so 144, is that what we see here? Is that the 144?
That's right.
That is it. And just refresh me, what is the number of estimated drivers or that they might have in the building? Do you know? Or
Well, the parking study says that they need 87.
mm-hmm.
Maybe
Say
87
it
parking
again.
spaces.
Needed how many?
87 parking spaces?
Okay. Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Any other questions, Craig?
Nope, all set.
Mark? Evan, could you just comment on this required zone standard that applies here relating to the proposed income level for the residents of the multifamily use? Could you describe what that is? And I think you mentioned it would be in place at least for 30 years. Could you explain that a little bit more?
Sure. So it's a requirement that was put in place on this area of the campus when the zone changed to allow for affordable housing. And yeah, it requires a certain income level. As I say, it's kind of a mouthful. Do you want me to read it again?
No, I'm reading your memo. Please go ahead.
Yeah, it requires that the tenants, either renters or leasees, have a certain amount of income level based on the Clackamas County Housing Authority income limits. And yes, that's a requirement for 30 years in the property.
Is there a zoning requirement or option that allows for dispersing affordable housing units throughout the community rather than concentrating them in one building and one site?
I have to look at that.
I am pulling up the code here in just one moment, and I would just add that this provision was taken from the exemption that was already in the code that allowed affordable housing projects meeting the same criteria to be exempt from system development charges. So that's where that provision came from. We used the same language that currently exists there.
I see. Well, thank you. That's helpful. And this proposed application is for apartments to be rented rather than units to be sold. Is that correct?
That's right.
Thank you. Any other questions of our professional staff?
Did you find?
If not, and if the staff has no other comments in relation to its opening review of the staff report, we'll now take testimony, if any. And, excuse me, first of all, the applicant is invited to come forward and present their application. Good evening.
I am Sister Linda Patrick. I'm a member of the Sisters of the Holy Names of Jesus and Mary. I'm a member of the leadership team. And I've been working with Mercy Housing Team since January of 2021.
Maybe a little closer to the mic because you're not sitting there.
Okay. Oh, there we are. Okay. I'm Linda Patrick. Hello. In October of 1859, 12 Sisters of the Holy Names landed on the waterfront in Portland, having left Montreal in mid-September. In the 163 years since then, our mission and our ministries have been grounded in seeing and responding to the needs of people. These ministries were in education, pastoral ministers in hospitals, prisons, and social service agencies. With the closing of Merrill Hurst University, the sisters looked with fresh eyes at the needs of the people in the area. Affordable housing came into focus as a critical need. Our decision to partner with Mercy Housing Northwest to build an attractive, warm, and welcoming 100-unit complex for individuals and families, and with services to provide support to these residents, was a natural fit. We are delighted to provide property that is nestled in a beautiful setting with trees, fresh air, and room to walk and play, a place to call home. This partnership continues the mission of the Sisters of the Holy Names that came to life in Oregon 163 years ago. Mercy Housing Northwest and their mission have our complete support now and into the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that interesting and informative introduction.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Joe Thompson, and I'm the president of Mercy Housing Northwest. I'm so grateful to have this opportunity tonight to tell you a bit about my organization and our project here in Lake Oswego, and why I'm confident we will make a positive contribution to the Lake Oswego community. For nearly 30 years, the mission of Mercy Housing has been to create stable, healthy, and vibrant communities where families and seniors can thrive. So, who is Mercy Housing Northwest? We are a mission-driven nonprofit organization that develops, owns, and manages affordable housing. We serve over 6,000 residents every day in residential communities across the Pacific Northwest, from Bellingham, Washington, to Boise, Idaho, and in a few months, right across the river in Vancouver. We are the Northwest affiliate of Mercy Housing, the nation's largest nonprofit affordable housing developer. Because we are a long-term owner, we operate our own property management and on-site services, meaning that once we develop housing, we stay involved long-term through operations. And as was said before, on this project, our initial commitment period is 30 years. I want you to know that we view our properties as an important part of each community we develop in, and we strive to be the nonprofit developer of choice in every one of these communities. We are thrilled and honored that the community of Lake Oswego will be home to our very first Oregon project. One of the most important things about Mercy Housing is our commitment to resident services. A stable, affordable home is one of the things that creates healthy families and allows children to thrive. Resident services are a core part of the Mercy Housing Northwest approach that I believe makes us different from many other affordable housing providers. Our resident services programs are provided on-site by committed staff and are focused on helping residents achieve success in a variety of aspects of their lives. And our services have 5 areas of focus: health and wellness, out-of-school time, community engagement, housing stability, and financial stability. We engage our youth and offer extensive opportunities for them to be focused, championed, and equipped for success. These include things like back-to-school backpacks and supplies, community gardening, cooking and nutrition classes, playgrounds, outdoor space, and out-of-school time educational programming. We want to honor the legacy of both the Sisters of Holy Names as outstanding educators, as well as Merrill Hurst University as a place of learning. Therefore, a signature focus of our programming at Merrill Hurst Commons will be educational programming that will help ensure school readiness, academic success for our young learners. We are excited to do this in partnership with the Lake Oswego School District, whom we have been in productive conversation with about our shared commitment to creating bright futures for our students. Our educational programs will have dedicated staff on site and will focus on both academic and enrichment programming. As I said before, Mercy Housing Northwest serves 6,000 people every day. Most of them are workers with families. This goes back to our belief that everyone deserves a place to raise their children in a safe, nurturing environment. But what does affordable workforce housing mean? We know that workers in Lake Oswego have a challenge finding housing close to where they work. Housing costs make many of our communities unaffordable for families, who then have long commutes, spending less time with their children, and potentially living in areas that have less resources for their families. Long-term affordable housing is essential to strong, vibrant communities. It allows families to keep their children enrolled in their school district longer, build ties in that community, and engage civically. The demand for our housing is high. We've surveyed over 100 Marys Woods workers, and over half would be interested and qualified to live in our community. Over 80% of them commute over half an hour to work, and nearly 10% commuted 1.5 hours. In conversations with the Lake Oswego Chamber of Commerce, we've heard from the business community that many Lake Oswego employees live far outside the city and have long commutes, contributing to traffic, climate change, and disconnecting them from their communities and families. The booming housing market has been a bust for these families. A minimum wage worker, a person who works at a grocery store, a barista, or home health aide would need to work 87 hours per week to afford a 2-bedroom apartment in this market. These are the people we expect to live in Merrill Hurst Commons. The same workers we all see as we get coffee, buy groceries, and go about our days. Long-term affordable housing creates stable, vibrant, inclusive communities where everyone can thrive. Mercy Housing Northwest is working with experienced local partners on this project, including the Housing Development Center, the Bookin Group, Kittleson, and Walsh Construction. Community outreach has been ongoing since 2019, first with the Sisters and then with Mercy Housing Northwest. And towards that end, we've even created a design focus group to provide ongoing input about the design of the project. Overall, 2/3 of respondents support affordable housing in this location. Over half want to see an environmentally friendly design, and nearly half expressed interest in preserving open space on the campus. And we feel like our design is accomplishing these goals. These are the principles that the Sisters heard about in their community outreach several years ago, and these are the same principles we have heard from all of you and continue to embrace. At Mercy Housing Northwest, we believe in creating long-term affordable housing, but more than that, creating community. A safe place for families to raise their children, a building that both stands on its own quality, but also reflects the existing fabric of campus, preserving the open space on campus that all love and use. We believe in caring for the environment and designing a building that is environmentally sustainable, friendly, and resilient into the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that presentation. Commissioners, are there any questions of this witness?
We still have time for the...
Thank you.
Okay. Hello, my name is Melissa Sutz, and I'm a project manager and associate with Carlton Hart Architecture. With Carlton Hart, I've been designing affordable housing for 14 years, and the firm has been doing so for over 27 years. And I appreciate the opportunity to spend a few more minutes discussing the design intent behind this building, and it's already given a lot of the overview. So I'll just like to spend a few minutes kind of explaining how we got here and why we're so happy to present this building to you now. So as Joe just outlined, the clear project goals that have been with this from the start really have guided the design of the project since the beginning. We had a goal to just create a welcoming place for new residents, help them feel at home and feel a part of the community. And with that, we had inspiration with all the residential buildings at Mary's Woods just next door, and then the beautiful campus around us as well. And we really wanted to create a design that is responsive to that beautiful environment and preserve open space within the campus as well. And so do so, placement of the buildings was kind of the first step. So as Evan showed, here we are on campus. The proposed building is on the far east side in the location of existing dormitory buildings that will be removed. And it's located, in this, over to the right side, you can see it's in the existing area using existing parking spaces, just renovating those. And that allows us to preserve open space as well as the sensitive lands to the east. So we looked at the building not only in plan in terms of the context and good placement, but also in section. And so this diagram is showing how the scale of the building relates to the scale of buildings on campus, both in height and overall size. Also that the topography of the site means that the building is kind of stepping down and really kind of nestled into the hill and the surrounding trees. So you can see how it really fits in with the rest of the campus. And here's the approach down the hill, approaching the building from the rest of campus behind you, so approaching from the west to the east. And you can see how the building is really designed to open up to the campus of this courtyard. And the courtyard creates a variety of outdoor areas that are an extension of the communities, of the residential community, and provide amenities such as gathering areas, community garden beds, and play space. And the courtyard also provides a delineation between the residential space and the rest of the campus, again, adding to that kind of sense of home with a area that is clearly the residential, and then this amazing campus nearby to be part of as well. And as stated previously, the connection just around the surrounding area really informed the design. As a residential building, there are many connections with the nearby Mary's Woods to draw from. These elements were noted, some of these elements were noted on the Mary's Woods campus. The hip roof form rests on the idea of using the roof to hide mechanical equipment, as Evan showed previously. Vertical window proportions, articulated bays, so the building moves in and out a bit. At living rooms, the windows pop out to create just a nice variation in the side of the building, and also some nice place for residents. And a variety of cladding materials. So, brick is of course prevalent on campus. We also saw it at Mary's Woods along with other materials. So entry canopies and predominance of 3- and 4-story buildings. And then the Merrill Hurst Commons campus, of course, also directly inspired many elements of the building. So you can see just some of these diagrams to indicate some things we saw as looking around the campus. Really the sense of a vertical proportion. So in the windows and the variation of brick and cladding and again, kind of movement in and out on the facade of the building. Brick, of course, is a strong feature throughout the campus. We've worked with a local brick manufacturer to identify colors and textures and shapes that will match the existing brick. We also, again, have the sloped roof forms, the vertical proportion of windows. Another kind of interesting thing is a lot of the buildings have these repeating geometric patterns. Each building has its own unique one, but it's a kind of a cool thing to see walking around campus. And so we've picked up on that idea as well, and we'll include that as part of the design. So I feel like through these elements, connections to the surrounding, we've been able to achieve a building that really connects well with everything around it and creates a good future home for residents. And I look forward to seeing it be a part of this beautiful campus. So really appreciate the opportunity to present this project and request that it be approved along with the comments from the staff report.
Thank you for that presentation. Does the applicant have other witnesses or comments they want to make as part of their?
I believe I'm it. Yeah.
Oh, very good. Commissioners, do you have questions of any of the presenters? I just wondered if you know when you'll be starting construction and the length of time and when you think these units will be ready for occupancy.
Yeah, hi, Chris Bendix, project developer from Mercy Housing Northwest. Right now, we're on schedule to start construction this summer in August timeframe, and it's approximately 18 months of construction. So we would begin the move-in process in early 2024, and then pre-leasing would start a few months prior to that.
I see. And how will you select the tenants who will occupy these units?
There's quite a few different criteria that we have to meet to adhere to fair housing rules in terms of marketing and advertising. But in general, we do pretty extensive advertising and marketing throughout the community. We talk with other community-based organizations, small businesses, large businesses, to make everyone aware that there's an opportunity for their employers or clients to come and submit an application. And then there's an income qualification process as part of that application. That is how we determine whether an applicant is qualifying for the income standards as previously discussed.
Are there other criteria other than income? I mean, are you looking for certain family constellations or age groups? Or?
Not on this property. No, this is pretty much general. We would typically expect that there would be a mix in a property like this, especially with the variety of different bedroom sizes.
Do you have staff on site? One of your spokesmen spoke about resident services. Do you have, what is the extent of staff, if any, and are they on site?
Sure, yeah. So we're proposing to have several staff on site. There will be an on-site property manager, on-site maintenance manager, both full-time, and then a part-time assistant manager, and then 2 on-site full-time resident services staff. The first would be what we call a resident services coordinator, which is sort of a generalist who's both running programs on-site and also out in the community making connections with other service organizations. And we're also proposing to have what we call a youth and school initiatives liaison. And that person's job is really to manage school-age children living on site and out-of-school time programs. So that's really a more specific focus on the 18 and under age group. And that person's also tasked with creating relationships with the local school district and the administrators at the local public schools to facilitate those relationships between resident families and the local schools.
I see, and we talked about the parking requirement, and I don't believe there's any transit requirement, but is there any type of van or bus offering you're allowing for residents who may be transit dependent?
That's not something that we're proposing tonight. It's certainly something we've considered on previous projects, and we'd be certainly willing to consider again here for sure.
I see. Well, thank you very much. I did have a question on the architecture of the building. Does it have any? Do any of the units have balconies or outdoor spaces other than going outside the building on the lawn?
Sure, yeah, I can speak to that. So the ground floor units do have patios, most of them, not all, because we had to kind of work with the grades as much as we could. So we always try to prioritize outdoor space as much as we can at these properties. One of the constraints with the funding source, one of which is the state of Oregon through the Oregon Housing and Community Services, OHCS program. So they have pretty stringent requirements about design on buildings, and balconies are one of the things that they are not big fans of, in part because of the long-term maintenance and in part because of the liability. So we're not proposing balconies. As we've demonstrated here, we do have a pretty generous outdoor space with communal space and more quiet seating areas and benches, things of that nature.
Well, thank you very much. Any other questions, commissioners? Thank you. We really appreciate that. Oh, yes, Dwight.
How does Mercy Housing Northwest deal with the evolution of income within a resident? If a resident family achieves income that exceeds the standards that have been set, how do you deal with that resident?
Yeah, so this property is going to be regulated. That's a good question. It's a little bit technical, but this property is going to be regulated because it's being financed with low-income housing tax credits. There will be a long-term regulatory agreement that runs with the property, and that regulatory agreement is part of the IRS tax credit program, which requires all of the income certifications. And in this type of housing, a resident is allowed to live there, and their incomes are verified, or re-verified, I should say, annually. And until that person's income exceeds, is it 120%, Joe? 40%. 140% of the restriction. So for example, if the income maximum was $50,000 per household, until they make 140% of $50,000, they would be entitled to live at the property.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, I just want to remind the commission the scope of the zone-specific standard regarding these questions about the income. Really the question is it multifamily housing? Okay. Is it in the right sub-area 1? Does it have more than 20 or more units? The applicant would have to make at least 10% of those units available for workforce housing in that. So the applicant, I think, has said they plan to make 100% available for it, but the zone requirement is 10%. So that would be out of 100 units, that'd be 10 units that have to be to meet that zone standard. The other, Mr. Chair, you indicated that there was a 30-year requirement. That is for the SDC waiver, which of course is not before the commission. The zone standard goes on forever. So it's 10% of the units. Okay, would have to be workforce housing. And that would be enforced by there'd be a covenant and reporting requirements to staff to verify that. But it's only 10%. So.
Thank you very much for those clarifications and for reminding us about the criteria we're applying tonight. Has the applicant completed its presentation?
Yeah.
In that case, we will invite testimony of other witnesses, if any. We will start with any witnesses who are here this evening who'd like to speak in favor of the application. Do we have any?
We have David in the audience, and then we don't have anyone via Zoom. So just David.
Okay. David, welcome, and please come
Thank you.
forward. I'm sorry, I don't know your last name.
It's David Trzaski. We purchased a home in Merrill, Hurst, across the street back in September. I'm just going to catch up on all this. If I'm not following protocol for a commission meeting, let me know.
We're glad you're here.
Address.
What would you like to?
I'd like to know what's
Say.
accomplished by the lot line adjustment. I looked at the handout that we were mailed to, and I spoke with Evan on the phone briefly. Never did go online to look at everything else, but what's accomplished by moving the lot lines? And I can't quite track the lot lines based on the print size of what I received.
Were you in favor or opposed to the?
I'm neutral. I'm completely neutral.
Oh, I see. Well, this is our opportunity to hear from you, but we do have a question. Does staff want to address that?
If you could put the lot line slide back up, that'd be great. Okay. I don't know which one you're, oh, sorry.
Okay, so the lot line adjustment was not a requirement for the development. It's something that the applicant proposed, which they can do. My understanding, the reason for this one is to have the development area all within one lot.
Okay.
That's the ultimate reason.
So they pushed them back to River Road? Is that where this is being pushed back to, adjustment?
No, it's,
You don't have a laser pointer that you could,
I can't
Okay.
use that. Yeah, so this, I mean, this shows the boundary.
okay, so it looks like you are pushing back towards River Road a little bit in the back. No?
No. No, you can see, I can't point to it, but you see where it says sensitive lands boundary?
Yes.
That's, so you go past that, that's Old River Road, so we're not towards Old River Road yet.
Oh, okay, got it.
All along the west.
Okay.
Yeah,
And the building, Davion Hall is gonna stay there?
that's right.
Okay, okay. So that's the only adjustment. Is there any adjustment to the other lot lines and towards the campus and then going west?
There's not.
And so the cemetery's obviously gonna stay and that piece of land that's undeveloped.
Right. Yeah, this is
Stays under
only
the
for
existing lot
parcels-
lines.
Just those lines there. for
Okay.
Parcels 2 and 3.
Okay, that makes sense. And then there was a couple of questions on parking. How many parking spots are they actually adding around the new building? 87 or 144?
So they're redeveloping some of the existing parking spaces, removing some of the existing parking spaces.
Sure.
The net is 144 parking spaces within the development area.
So everything it's in blue, well, if you go
Everything
back
in
to
there.
slide, everything in blue around that slide is gonna be parking.
So
That's
some
all
of
the
that's
parking.
already existing, but yes, all that is.
That comes up to 144?
That's right.
Yeah, that's pretty good, accurate number, I think. 144. 1.5 cars per unit. Some people have 2, 3, some have none. So it's a good
Did you have
number.
any other comment about the adequacy of the parking?
No, I think, when I heard 87, I thought it was a little low. When we sold houses, had to rent an apartment, and some people had 3, 4 cars, and some people had 1.
It can be an issue, yes.
Oh, yeah, and I'm sure if there's not enough parking, you can park in other parking areas on the Merrill Hurst campus, which is plenty towards the front, in my mind. I've walked that campus for years between River Road and 43 and 43, cutting through. So there's plenty of parking there if you can.
Sounds like you're familiar with it.
I am. I've been there probably a couple hundred times cutting through or walking by. And you said you're gonna have 17 one-bedroom, 61 two-bedroom, 22 three-bedroom. What's the total maximum occupancy be by head count?
There is no maximum occupancy.
So in a three-bedroom apartment, you could have 10 people living in there.
But we don't have that requirement in our code.
No, but I was wondering what Mercy Housing's requirements are. I mean, you can't possibly have a one-bedroom apartment with 8 people living in there.
Maybe they can answer that question.
Yeah, the applicant will have rebuttal time.
Okay, so
perhaps they
that's
can
the question
address
I'd
that
like
in
to
their
ask,
rebuttal. Yeah. There is no
I guess
occupancy.
Joe Thompson or somebody from your side could answer that.
Yeah, there is no occupancy standard for the criteria for approval for this
But
project.
they should have something. I was curious about that. What else do I have? Occupancy total and by apartment size. Who's actually gonna own the buildings? The sisters, or are they doing a land lease for 30 years with Mercy Housing?
That's something we can have the applicant
Okay.
address.
And then Mercy Housing has a contract for how many years to manage it? That's another question for them. And let's see. That's all I have.
Do you have any other comments, or?
Sure. I think it's in theory, it's a good idea. It depends on the management company. It's gonna make or break it. If they manage it right and they got a lot of good ideas and it comes to fruition, that's great. I think youth villages on the other side, and there's been some changes there from the previous tenants. I think that's a nice operation, and if it runs as well as that, should be fine.
Well, good, we appreciate you taking the time.
And I like
to
the
do that.
architecture too, by the way, because it really ties in with the Merrill Hurst campus buildings. And then when you did the comparison to Mary's Wood buildings, it really complements it. So that was well thought out of.
Thank you for your comments and for taking the time to be here tonight.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Are there other members of the public who wish to testify?
First, we'd be asking for those for the application. I wouldn't classify that one as.
I thought I had asked for 4.
Right.
Any opposed, and
Okay.
then neutral, and I think
Kat,
David,
do we have
Mr.
any
David
signed
was
up?
neutral.
Thank you.
Now we will, with the permission of the Deputy City Attorney, we will ask for rebuttal and clarification from the applicant, if any.
Sure, I can respond to those questions that just came up. So the lot line question, that's correct. Yeah, the intent is to ensure that the whole redevelopment occurs within one parcel. There's another layer to that, which is that as part of the project, we have to record restrictive covenants on the parcel. And we felt it would be prudent to make sure that those restricted covenants only applied to the parts of, a more tailored part of the campus. So that's the lot line question. As to occupancy limits, it's 2 people per bedroom plus 1. So in a 1 bedroom, it could be 2 plus 1 is 3 people, et cetera. The ownership question, we're going to enter into a long-term lease with the Sisters of the Holy Names. Right now, we have an option to lease, and we're just embarking on hammering out all of the details in the next couple of months on the final terms of that lease. But we will be in a long-term lease with SNJM, continuing to own the land in perpetuity. And then the length of the management agreement is Mercy Housing Northwest and our affiliated management company, they manage all of our properties. We don't have any properties in our portfolio that are managed by anyone else. So that management agreement really is indefinite.
Commissioners, are there any other questions of the applicant on rebuttal? Craig?
Yeah, and Evan, tell me if this is out of our purview, but I was gonna ask, the maintenance, ongoing maintenance of the building and the grounds and the time between who's gonna maintain that. Obviously, it's low-income housing, so there's gotta be some SLA or something on keeping it up, making sure the people that live in it, that the maintenance in their apartments
Yeah.
How's that work?
Yeah, we conduct annual inspections, and we also have a pretty extensive list of house rules that applicants are required to sign on to when they sign their lease. And we will have on-site maintenance, and that includes the grounds as well.
Okay, and to your question, I guess, I'm not aware of any criteria that specifically addresses what management requirements are relative to maintenance. Of course, the city has codes regarding dangerous buildings. I don't expect it to get into that condition. But normally, when we look at threeplexes, fourplexes, fiveplexes, in multifamily housing, maintenance is not how they manage the property is not a land use question. Okay?
Got it.
No.
Okay.
Whether they do it on an annual contract or every 30 days, whatever, that's up to them. Okay.
Commissioners, any other questions of the applicant on rebuttal? Does the applicant have any other information, rebuttal, or clarification they'd like to offer?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Mr. Chair, prior to closing the public hearing, any person may request an opportunity to present additional evidence. If a request is made, the public hearing will be continued to a date certain, either not less than 7 days later, or the record shall remain open for at least 7 days after the hearing to enable additional written evidence or testimony to be submitted, and the commission would establish the period for any written rebuttal evidence to be submitted. Is there any such request to continue the hearing? Hearing none. Unless waived by the applicant, the commission would allow the applicant at least 7 days after the record is closed, all other persons to submit final written argument in support of the application. That information would be considered part of the record, but would not include any new evidence. So I ask the applicant, do you wish to submit final written argument, which would continue the hearing, or do you wish to submit based upon the evidence you presented? I see 2 nods, yes, to proceed, I think. So with that, Mr. Chair, you may proceed to deliberation.
Thank you, Mr. City Attorney. Commissioners, what are your thoughts, if any, on this application? Dwight, did you have any comments?
No, appreciate the detailed explanation and the comments from the public. My impression based on what I've heard tonight is that this project is consistent with the requirements that we're going to have to judge, and therefore I feel that this has been a satisfactory hearing for me.
Thank you very much. Bruce?
Everything sounds great to me. Sounds like a good mission for the city and for the college, for Merrill, Hurst sisters and all to go forward. I'm in favor of it.
Thank you for that comment. Craig?
Yeah, as you heard Evan give us some guidelines on our role here is looking at the development and the code, and that's not an issue. I think it's a great project, and looking forward to it.
Thank you. Mark?
Code requirements are met.
Thank you. I appreciated the excellent presentation and the public participation. And I do recall, I think in 2010, the city had an affordable housing task force and a report, and affordable housing, workforce housing, senior housing has been the subject of a lot of discussion in our community, certainly of late. And I think this really satisfies a need. And I appreciate Mercy Corps' involvement. I appreciate the sisters' support of this project and the other professional staff who have worked on it. I agree with the staff recommendation that this satisfies all applicable criteria with any conditions as suggested in the staff report. So I'll be voting in favor of it when we get to vote. Any other comments from the commissioners? Professional staff, did you have any other guidance you wanted to offer? I will entertain a motion then on the application, if any.
I'll make a motion to approve LU 21-0077 per the city approved plan.
I'll second that motion.
Any discussion on the motion? All in favor indicate by saying yes.
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 Any opposed? Do we need a voice? Do we need a A roll call vote?
No, Mr. Chair, you can do that at the next meeting when you adopt the written findings. And that leads me, of course, to announce that this is a tentative decision by the commission. Written findings will be brought back to the commission on March the 7th at 7 p.m.
Thank you very much. That concludes our public hearing on LU 21-0077 for this multi-family use development.
A quick sidebar?
Now we'll go on to schedule review and management update.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next DRC meeting is on March 7th. We do have an item scheduled for that evening. It's a subdivision application in addition to the findings for this project. We also tentatively have another hearing scheduled in the second meeting in March. We'll confirm that with you later. It is a project that has been postponed a few times as the applicant is trying to work out some issues with an appellant. It's an appeal of an application. So we will keep you posted on that. But as of now, those are the only two hearings that we have upcoming.
Any questions from the commissioners about our upcoming schedule? Thank you very much for that report. Any other business tonight?
No.
If not, without objection, we'll adjourn. Thank you very much.
Thank you.